We're going to continue this week. Mr. Hashem. Last week we spoke about pas akim, which has to do with baked stuff. And now we're going to continue with bishul akim. Very, very important halachas. Negai lamaisa. As last week we mentioned, the Gemara tells us that Chazal was goizer that we should not eat food which Goyim cooked. Now, we're not talking about non-kosher food. We're talking about this 100% kosher. We know it's kosher. All the ingredients are kosher. It is only that the Goyim cooked it. Chazal asked such a thing to eat. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah, Daf Lamed Vav, first wanted to say that it's a Isser Doiraisa. And why? Because there's a pasuk in the Torah which says, "Oichel b'keisef tashbiraini v'ochalti." Moshe Rabbeinu said we're going to go through the Edom. Oichel b'keisef tashbiraini v'ochalti. I will eat food which I will pay. I will pay with money. Imayim b'keisef titali v'shasisi. You're going to give me water. I'm going to purchase water, I'm going to drink. So the Gemara darshes the same as mayim is a thing which is not changed, the same as it was created, the same as what you could eat. That means we could eat from the goyim, which is Edom. We could eat water because it wasn't changed. The same, we could only purchase food from a goy which is not changed. So the Gemara wants to say it's a pasuk that you cannot eat bishul akim. Then the Gemara says no. It's not midrabanan, but asmachta ba'alma. That means the Chazal put it on at that pasuk. It's only asmachta. Now, as we mentioned last week, there is also a iser of pas hakim. Chazal asked pas hakim. Chazal asked bishul hakim. Now the Rishonim ask, why didn't the Chazal make one? It's basically one tkana. Why is it two tkanas? Bishul hakim and pas hakim. And as I mentioned last week, there are some lenience which there is by pas hakim, which we're going to see. We saw last week palter from a baker, which we don't have by bishul, and there are some lenience which is by bishul hakim, which we're going to see this week, which is there is by pas hakim. So why didn't they make basically one final, one gezaira? In Tosfos over there says that basically it's two different gezairas because it was made in two different times. Bishul hakim was made before pas hakim. First they made the gezaira bishul hakim and they didn't ask pas hakim. Then they added on pas hakim. Then they saw that it's impossible. Chaya nefesh, pas is chaya nefesh. So they became more lenient by pas. But the old gezair of bishul hakim, they didn't touch. Because that didn't see a reason that they should basically be more lenient. So Tosfos says that basically bishul hakim is way before pas hakim. And therefore, although they took away the gezair of pas hakim, bishul hakim stays, and it is also bishul hakim to buy food from a goy, although it's kosher, but if a goy cooked it, it will be osir. What is the tama iser that you cannot? Why did Chazal make such a gezaira? As you mentioned last week, we have two reasons. One reason is the reason which main Rishonim go, the Rambam and other Shulchan Aruch and most Rishonim go. That is, Chazal did not want we should get close to goyim. We should be friends with goyim. We don't play with goyim. We don't dress like goyim. We don't mingle with goyim. And therefore, Chazal did not want to make a big barrier between Yidden and Goyim. They said you cannot eat their food. Because once you start eating food from a Goy, automatically you get close to him, you go visit him in his house, you eat in his foods, automatically, eventually you come to Chaz v'Sholem intermarriage. So therefore Chazal say, although maybe the ingredient is okay, the essence that the Goy cooked the food, you cannot eat food from, it's called Mishim Chasnas. Chazal was afraid intermarriage. Rasha says there is another reason also. It is Mishim Shem Yechelen Duvar Achar. Maybe he's going to give you non-kosher food to eat. Now it doesn't mean that this food, he will give me this food non-kosher. We're talking about food which we know 100% is kosher. I was on top of it, I saw how I made it. Shem Yechelen Duvar Achar means, since I'm going to eat by a goy, and basically I invite him, he invites me, although I am makbid when I go there, basically that it should be kosher. Once you get close, you're going to eat by him, it's going to come a time that he's going to give you non-kosher food. That's the reason also why it's do gezaira. And the Rishonim say that basically we have both tamim, but the main tam is b'shem chasnas. So therefore, although we know 100% that no non-kosher food ingredients is in, a thing which are goy cooked is also mishim chasnas. Now the Gemara tells us, Umar Shmuel Beribitzchel Gumarav, there is two exceptions. Which food which are goy cooked is mutter to eat? Zog the Gemara, Kol ha-nechel k'moi sheyichai, ein bo mishim bishul akim. Anything which is nechel k'moi sheyichai, if you could eat it when it's raw, although the goy cooked it, but since you could eat it also, he cooked a apple. Yeah? He made applesauce, he made a compote, whatever. Now apple you can eat when it's raw too. And the goy took the apple and he cooked it. Since it is nechel k'moi sheyichai, therefore it's not a problem. It's mutter. Azoi zog the Gemara, this is how they learned in Surah. Surah, there was two, we know, in Bavel there was two yeshivas. Yeah, there was two big yeshivas. There was Surah and Pempadisa. Yeah? So Surah, they learned that anything which is nechem achmasichai, you can eat it when it's raw also, although the goy cooked it, it's mutter. In Pempadisa they learned, not the chilig is if it's nechem chai or not, it's if it's oil al shulchan maluchim. If it is a food which is oil al shulchan maluchim, that means, as we're going to see in length soon, what does it mean oil al shulchan maluchim? It means it is a lavish food which goes, it's on the table of kings, then this is a thing which is osir. If it's not a thing which you don't put on a table in front of kings, such a thing is not osir bishul akim. What is the difference? A very simple difference. An apple, for instance, yeah, is not oil, is nechel k'moi sheyichai. It will be mitter, according to Surah. According to Pevadisa, yeah, it's oil al shulchan maluchim. Apples oil al shulchan maluchim, it will be osir. Then there's other foods which basically is not oil al shulchan maluchim, and it's not nechel k'moi sheyichai. Yeah? So therefore, so we see there are foods, so the Gemara took two camps which they answered. What is, the Gemara fragt, my banai, what is the difference? The Gemara emphasizes, dogim kitanim, va'orde v'daisa. Dugim kitanim, small fish, something like maybe sardines. Dugim kitanim, zuk trasha, ein nechule mechaim. You cannot eat it. Fish you cannot eat raw, once upon a time. Today's day is a new, different world. Why it's sushi. We're going to get to sushi too, Miyas Hashem too. We can get to that. But akapunam, but va'ayin oile shechem anucham. Small, tiny, small fish. Sardines, you don't give b'shlechem anucham. So there's the Gemara, that's the chilik. Lelishne kama yesh b'shela akim. Lishne kama, if it's nechem mach mechai is mutter, and if it's not nechem mach mechai is osir, so small fish will be osir. Lelishne basra, since I know shechem anucham is amita. Zuk toisvus in the Rosh, that the Rabbani Tam pasken lekila like both. That means we are Michael, since it's only a drabunan, since Bishlak Saksa is only a drabunan, we are Michael, that means in order to Shizan Osir, it has to have both things. It has to be oil al shulchan malucham, like the learned Pempadisa. It has to be eine nechel chai, like Surah. And this is how we pass in the Shulchan Aruch, a gewaldige killer. We took both Toysvus and Rabbi Tam, we pass like that in order as a Zach Zan Usir, has to have two criteria. Has to be oil al shulchan malucham, has to be a thing which you were able to be mechabat, and has to be also a thing which you cannot eat raw. If you can eat it raw, although they cooked it, that is amitter. What is the reason of it? What is the reason of that they took away this? Oh, here is not bishlakim. If it's b'shem chasanos, was the so why should you be lenient on this? Zukt them the Tirzuov. Since the Iker Gezaire, as I mentioned before, there's two reasons, but the Iker Gezaire is b'shem chasanos. So in order, when are we afraid that basically the goy, we should get close to the goy, we should get mingled with the goy? That is only when a thing which the goy invites you. When a goy invites you, if you're going to invite the goy for a meal and he's going to invite you, inviting some for a meal, then you're going to get close to him. So therefore, Chazal HaMagased only a thing which is the derech to be inviting someone else. Nobody's going to invite someone else and give him, popcorn. That's not for a meal. It's a thing which, when you invite someone for a meal, you give him nice food, lavish food, whatever. Give him food which is... So therefore, since the whole Indian is b'shem chasanas, and since Chazal said that the thing which you're not machabed, we are not afraid you should become close. So therefore, that's the reason that it's not a problem. The same will also be oila shel chamaluchim. That's the reason of oila shel chamaluchim. So verkeerd, nech mach mas chai. Dover shenech kemoit shi chai. There's another reason. Mitzad oila shel chamaluchim is it's not choshev. It's not going to bring it to you. It's not masben. What's the end of nechel chai? If it's nechel chai, but it could be a nice lavish thing. Why is it mitter? Zukt of them the chai udam because it's not considered bishul. In order kedais is all canon zan usur has to be bishul. Now again, bishul does not mean bishul. It can mean baked. It can mean fried. It means also broiled, but it has to be through fire. That's called bishul. Do some chazal gas. As we're going to see, ma'ushan, if they smoke something, guys, they shran geder fin bishlakim. But ma'ila zug the chai udam, since a thing which a nechel chai. Now, although they cooked it, and they cooked it regular cook, in the broil, they cooked it on the fire or a pot, but it's not considered cooking. If you can eat it, if you can eat this apple when it's raw, you didn't give much. You didn't add on too much to it, because bishul means you prepared it should be ready to be eaten. No, not tircha. It has to be you made something that should be ready to eat. If it was ready beforehand, although let's say it gets better, but sof kosof, es geht nicht an in the geder bishul. Bishul, geder bishul, as I mentioned before, smoked is not a geder bishul, so therefore it won't be a problem of mavision. Kuvish. Kuvish is not a problem of mavish. That's all we can eat. If you have kosher herring, which are goy made, it's not a problem. Although he's a kuvish and it makes it ready to food. Because alam vegeshel has to be bishul. What does it mean bishul? Bishul means a sach which changes the food, but through fire. Now, although over here he changed it through fire, but it gunish aufgetein. The lushna gemur dorten. Slip mach machshafto. It didn't. You can eat it before and you can eat it after. And became better. It's benaf kamina. So therefore, hominins is no problem of bishlakim if it is nechel chai before you cooked it. So again, we have two reasons. We have two tayrim. One is ein heter is ein oil shechem alucham, and the reason why we didn't make a gezaira is because there's no kirev adas. Because it's not a lavish food that you should be masbeh somewhere else. And the other reason the other heter which we had is as nechel chai, and therefore the reason is because the lo yoili machshafta, others the lushna gemura, lo yoili machshafta, the machshuva didn't do anything because it was ready beforehand. Now the iser of bishul akem is not only when it is the house of a goy. But Pashas you would say, what's chasnas? Chasnas is the pshat. If you're going to eat by the goy, you're going to be invited by his house, then there's a problem bishlakim. Now, if I have a non-Jew, a goita, a cleaning lady, or a maid is working by me in your house, but by Yisrael, shouldn't be a problem. There's no problem of kirb of chasnas. And this is the shitta from Rabbeinu Avrum. The Tur brings on Rabbeinu Avrum, which holds Bavais Yisrael is a heter. If it is Bavais Yisrael, there's no string as Bishlakim. But Lamasa, all the Rishonim, Ribbe Kikila Rishonim and Poskim do not agree with Rabbeinu Avrum, and we don't take it. We will use it when we have other tzarifim. We will take the Rabbeinu Avrum Ochet on the tzarif, but we don't use this. Is dus Ashal is one of Papashas. It's not the Ravat. There are some which want to write the Ravat, but gezien dacht de Berzinner mit andere have rayas as kennish on the Ravat, because the Rambam writes in the subject doesn't mashma nicht so, and the Ravat doesn't say anything on it. So it's nicht Rabbeinu Avrum. Da sagen gibt's andere Rishon, was ich denke nicht. Aber einer von der Rishon, der Tor bringt immer auf. Einer der Tor bringt Rabbeinu Avrum, aber la Masse ins Paskema that even weiß es road. If you have a cleaning lady or a maid which made scrambled eggs for your children in the house, it's also to eat. as we're going to see soon, as eggs is ein nechel chai, and it's oil shel maluchim. So a goiter made scrambled eggs or made French toast, whatever, for breakfast for the children. You cannot eat it. It is bishul akim. The what? Oh, is the kailim also? That's extra. Look, we're going to get to that. Bishul akim, also the kailim, yeah. And this is a thing which we have concept. I had this child more than once. The goiter, she made scrambled egg. Why was she scrambling? She didn't make taka. You don't let her make meatballs, but scrambled eggs. The frying pan is awesome. Now, as we mentioned last week, in pas there is a heter of pas palter. What does it mean, pas palter? A baker. So, is there the same heter also by Bishul palter? That means if you have a goy which cooks from his house, but he cooks only to sell it. He has a catering in his house. He has a catering, or in a store. He has a catering. Catering is a palter. He makes cooks. Is there such a heter or not? Now there is a Maritza Halin, one of the Svardish Gedolis rule about 250 years ago, which wants to say yes, maybe even 300. He wants to say yes. There is a heter, the same as pas palter, there is a heter. The same is also bishul palter is auch the heter. And therefore, if the goy did not make it in his house and invite you, but he is only cooking, is only to serve out for the other people to sell it, it's called bishul palter, the same as bas palter, and there's no different. The same heter of pas palter, there's also bishul palter. But that's not like By Nafra. By Nafra wants to say bebais Yisroel, so דיני bebais Yisroel. The he wants to say even not bebais Yisroel, bebais goy, but it's a palter. It's a profession. But Lamasa, all Achroinim disagree with the Meritzahalin. The Birkiyasi brings him down and he fights him all the way. And some Achroinim say, not only we don't rely on the Meritzahalin, we don't even use it as a tziruf. As I mentioned before, I said that Rabbi Navrum, we will use when we need some kind of natziruf. We use in natziruf. When you have other tairam, we can use it. But when we comes to the Meritzahalin, the Arachronim which want to say, not even for the tziruf, we could use it. It's ugefreit lalucha, there's no such thing, tzadin dafkem pas, it's not a din bishul, and therefore it's aser. Now, what we just said, that's called palter. Palter means he makes it in order to sell it. But let's hear something else. Not how sell it. Could you be Michael in a factory? You have a factory, which you make food, products. So maybe there's no such thing as kirva, because you don't know the worker doesn't know me, the worker doesn't know the food even, it's machines and machines. So maybe in such a case, you could be lenient in a factory in a bais charoshus. Now, the Moshe Feinstein talks about this in Yeridai Chaylik Dalat Simem Ches Ashai, and he says, Ein limchois al aili shenhagel hukl. If you know someone who is Michael, because again, Bishul Akim is a duver chumer, it's a isad drabunan, you can't play around with. Zukt aber Moshe, if you see someone who is Michael, because it's a chabais charoishes, Ein limchois al aili shenhagel hukl, because it's a bais charoishes. As we have to Moshe. The master, he himself writes you shouldn't rely on it. The Moshe doesn't rely on it. But the look can't What's the pshat? What is the pshat? The pshat is, again, the Nekin is chastnas. Chastnas is even a palter, even the people who say, not the Rita Gazi, the Rita Tzahalin, because after all, you walk into a restaurant, he bakes it over there, he cooks it over there. You get connection with him. You know him, you get close to him. You eat in his restaurant, so to speak. A kosher restaurant, aber sie bishel him. Not in his house. Aber saf kosof is a palter. So automatically there's kirva. It's no kirva. I get to know him. They say the people who go every morning to the coffee shop and buying a bagel and a coffee, they know already the waiter and they tip her extra. And they know the balabos. They get some kind of connection. So in a palter we could say that not like the Maritzal, because of course you can get chasnas. But when it's a company, which nobody gets into the company is off limits. Only the mashgich kashas goes in, but bedoichik, rarely. But I kapunam, so he can mile. But what kind of chasnas is this if I buy, a food, which comes from a big company, what should be a problem? What should be a problem? This is the Sfuras Hamakila. Lamasa the Moshe Nishmaskem. And the Moshe wants to say, when could you rely on this heter? Only if it's such a bitzl, which is efshel leyuchid levashel b'tzirik zibabais. It's interesting. Listen what he says. It's only a food. When is the Moshe masking to rely on such a heter? Only on a food, which such a food is a private person could not cook such a way in his house. The way how they cook in a company, let's say the machinery, how they have in order to cook this kind of food, could not be cooked in a person's house. A person's house cannot make this kind of food because they don't have the machinery. Then, in such a case, I'm ready to be Michael on such a thing. Now, Moshe doesn't write it. Who writes it? There's a Chivas Shalchis Rivas Ephraim, which he is a Talmud of Moshe. He's a nephew of Remnute Grimblatt. The Rivas Ephraim is called Ephraim Grimblatt. There's probably a lot of people heard of him. And he had an uncle, which his name was Remnute, a big Gudel Yisrael, a Talmud Muvak of Moshe. He passed away a couple of years ago. There's a lot of nice, talks with him. There's a book on him. Remnute writes, I spoke with Moshe, and I spoke on this subject, and Moshe told me this thing, that if it is such a way of cooking, that nobody could cook in such a way in a private house, such a food which you cannot cook in a private house, this way of cooking, I'm ready to be Michael. And Moshe, he said, I wrote it down, and I said that Moshe should look it over, and Moshe looked it over and says, yeah, I agree. But, what? Weil dort kann man nicht umkommen, maybe in a company in Lopelik, but if it's such a way that a house in a company is so different and it's not even possible it should be like in a house, as a fall, kann man Michael sein. Schweres Wort zu verstehen, aber man kann ja da Plik. But, it's interesting that Rav Belsky, in his Shivas Shilchen Alayvi, Simon Hai, he writes, not this is what the heter of Rav Moshe. Not like the Remuta, because he also spoke with Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe, what was Rav Muta's heter? According to Rav Moshe, according to Rav Muta Greenblatt, if it is a food that this way you cannot cook, this way, when you want to cook, let's say, potatoes, this way to cook potatoes, and you cannot cook at home like the cooking in the machine, so therefore you can be Michael. Rabbi Zuk, what? Es heißt Bischel, but since this way, no one in the house can cook it this way, so therefore there's a big, it's a chilik between a house and a company, if you're allowed to buy roishes, then you're going to also use a ham, because nobody could cook it such a way. Rav Belsky says, B'Shem Moshe, not that's than a kid. It's only a food which you cannot make b'chlal at home. It's only a food which a company can make and you cannot make it. Which, I don't know exactly what does it mean. Maybe Pringles. I don't know. You see the difference? A big difference. It's a big difference in push and practical. The difference is, according to the first shit that Moshe means, even if you can make it home, it's fine. If you can make it home, it's not nishkach. If you can make it home the same way as you make it in the company, even though you can make this food, but you have to make it a different way, it's okay. According to Rabbi Belsky and Moshe, if you can make this kind of food, even you do it a different way. Since you can make this kind of food, it's nicht gehetet, only it's a food which you cannot make over a company. But Lamasa, the Achronim do not agree even on this Moshe. I'm just making it clear. Ravosne mit andere, sind nicht maskim. In Ravosne bring down, bringt the Nikidem Maschroishes, and it says, the Lushan, imi peh, kudesh, hachazanish, shemati, lahachme b'zeh. So Lamasa, we don't rely on this. But, the OU and some other national companies will rely on it. So again, when we start asking a question, should we buy products which has hechsher of the national hechsherim, which is 100% kosher, but you gotta see. If it's a thing which is Zachans Bishul Akim, they will rely that this company, it's made a company. I'm not talking about most Chassidische, but even Yeshivische Welt will not rely on such a thing. So therefore, although some people will be more lenient to buy OU stuff, you gotta know if it's Duaf Shalom Bishul Akim of net. Now, if it's a thing which you know it's now Elishach Maluchim, then okay, then there's no Bishul Akim. But if it is a thing which is Bishul, there is the problem of Bishul Akim, there is a Bishul Akim. Now you want to know, you think yourself, is I am a Chassidish Yid, a Labam Shechoset, wants to rely on a heter, which first of all, in the Moshe Gif Haman and Samachloikas, in the Moshe Gif a line, in his Shiva's rights not to rely on Bais Charoshes. So again, that's one of the things which we're going to get to it. Now, what? We will go into eventually all these things. Yeah. If you just want to know till we'll come back, might not come this week. You know what? You should eat with a Bishul Yisroel. The what?
That's an example.
That's one of the Charoshes. Yeah.
What about today's machinery that came out? There's no Negias Yadodom.
What's the difference? Okay, but the goy gemacht. Why not? If you're gonna see, if the Yid when he puts on the machine, that's called Bishul Yisroel. So when the goy puts on, you can't make all the kids decide where you want to go. Yeah, man. Okay, we get it. Yeah. We're gonna get to a lot of foods because I want to bring it up because there's a lot of achroin and big shmiz achroin, all these things, and some things have tzarifim. No, some things you have tzarifim. No, Musha Fatuna, there are some other tzarifim, and there are other people take away the tzarifim. So again, I'm just bringing to the attention. Whenever a national hechsher gives a hechsher on a thing, it's kusher. So yesh le'mamal is moichi according to all the poskim. But the shal is not. If you want to rely on all the killers, which there is in the poskim. Now, a national hechsher has to rely on killers because if not, you won't get companies to be servant of you. And that's why this is what Rabbi Levi said. I had to rely on things because that's part. Aber the shal is in Chassidische Yidden. If you want to rely on things. Now again, there are things which is not a problem because it's not Elishach Menuchim. But if it is a thing which is Elishach Menuchim, we have to consider how we want to go. Okay, so the next thing which you have is, which you mentioned, Nechel Kemoshi Yichai. One of the items which we said, a food which is Nechel Kemoshi Yichai, that's a heter, that even though if you cooked it, it's not a problem because you can eat it when it was not cooked. Zug the Urech HaShelchen, Sifid Bais, alles is, whatever we talk, if I don't give it those, is Siman Kifid Gimel. It's Yeredai, Siman Kifid Gimel. So all the Achroinim, which they talk, if it's not a Chivas Reifer, it's on a Shechan Orach, you should remember it's Siman Kifid Gimel. Last week was Kifid Bais, that's Pasakim, Bishul Akim is Kifid Gimel. Im Weiter. Zug the Urech HaShelchen, in Azoi schreibt doch it, mein Rebbe, the Ravos, the Shavet Alayvi, that, how do we judge a thing which is nechel k'moshi chai? It goes according to most people. What most people will eat raw, that's considered nechel chai. If you have some people which will eat raw things, that's not considered nechel k'moshi chai. It's interesting that my shver Ula Beshulam once went with one of the big mashgichim in the OU. They went to Ahava, to the milk in Buffalo. But on the way they stopped, and they had over there a field, and the mashgich, which my shvei went with him, took off a piece of corn and ate it. My shvei said, "You eat raw corn? Yeah, you can eat it. No problem. I eat it." Okay, he ate it, but I don't know how many people will eat.
The guy in the marketplace, he comes, walk the manager, he walked over to the big box of corn, pulled it out. I knew you could eat it raw, but it was mom just looked straight out of the box, pulled it raw.
So this does not mean nechel k'moshi chai. It goes according to, again, it goes according to rough people. If most of the people will eat it raw, that's considered raw. If most of the people will not eat it, that's not considered. Even the person who eats it raw, cannot eat it, because that's not considered nechel k'moshi chai. If the Rav eat it when it's chai, even if this person only eats it cooked, it's mutter. It goes vice versa. What? Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is the next step what I wanted to say. And it goes according to the country. It goes according to the country. Which country? The country which you cooked it, and the country which you eat it. Both. This is a ganze Schale, which there is also in Chochmasudem has a whole Shmiz on it in Chochmasudem, in Och Kafchaim, in Prichudesh. How do we go? Lamase, we go on both of them. For instance, if you go in China, in China, a lot of products today's day you make in China. Now in China is nechel k'moshi chai, so you can be like it. But in America, nobody eats it. In China, they would eat corn, let's say, raw. But in America, they don't eat it. So since in America, where I purchased the stuff, over here, since over here, I'm going to eat it, therefore, it's ein nechel k'moshi chai, and it's do a bishlakim. The same will go vice versa. If in China, it is a thing which nobody eats when it's raw, although over here people raw it, since they cooked it over there, and over there it's ein nechel mach b'shachai, is it gewonnen schon bishul akim? So over there, just because we eat it over here raw, that means we go on both ways.
So if raw have to be in its original form, or what if the process but not cooked? And people eat it and they don't realize it.
What does that mean, the process they're not cooked?
Let's say you process, I don't know what the process of high fructose corn syrup, but everybody's eating high fructose corn syrup. Maybe it doesn't need cooking. Let's say it was put in a raw form or not with cooking. Everybody's eating it. Does that mean that you can now...
If what? Again, I don't know. Say it again.
You're saying that the majority of the country has to be eating it raw.
Yeah.
Does it have to be raw corn, or can it be a byproduct of corn, which is not cooked and everybody's eating it?
Like what? What does that mean?
It's in a food that's not cooked.
No, you go into something else. If it's mixed together with other foods, that's a whole. We're going to get to this ochet.
Right.
If you don't eat it,
high fructose corn syrup is made out of corn.
Okay.
Everybody eats it. He doesn't know.
Everybody eats what?
High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, that's a process. Somebody goes through a process.
Okay.
So no.
It's also mixed into every food.
I could say. Okay. Again, it's nicht egal, weil it has to be itself. But I will give you an example which you're going to ask. Maybe that will help you. If you have fish which you eat raw by soaking it, let's say in vinegar for a day, and then you cook it. But most of the people will eat it when it's already soaked sushi, let's say. If it's soaked or salted. If it's salted, and now it's ready to eat, and he cooked it now. Maybe this could be some kind of example of your question. In such a case, you hear what it is? If you have a food which is cooked, but you could eat it before it's cooked by a process, for instance, you soaked it, you salted. Herring. Yeah? Somebody cooked herring.
Sure.
Yeah? It's whatever, yeah. Somebody cooked it, but before, he made it rule achila by a thing which asar, doesn't asar. So that could be your question, maybe, if this is the question.
By Bishul, you mentioned that it only applies by something that's cooked. If it's processed, not by cooking.
This is tamaza. It's b'chalneshusar. It has to be bishul. But if the question is, if it was ready before to eat, before it was cooked, then again, the cook did not do too much. Most people eat it not like that. So if somebody's going to cooked fish, which basically most people will eat when it's soaked in vinegar, let's say, then avadan shukam bishlaki.
So something that let's say we eat in China raw, let's say tuna fish. Everybody in China eats it raw. You can buy a can of tuna fish in China that's raw, and eat it, right?
And eat it in China. But not over here. What?
If you cook it in China and fly here, it's also good.
If you cook it in China, you bring it over here, then it's a problem. It's bishlakim. Because over here nobody eats the raw. This is exactly what I'm saying before.
But you said that it has to do with the country that it came from and the country that you're eating.
That's right. That means if in China people eat it raw, and you eat it raw in China, then b'ois mukam is nechal chai, and so then you're right. But if in China you eat it raw, and you cook it, and you bring it here, A goy cooked it, you bring it here. Now this food over here, this fish, this tuna for instance, raw tuna, nobody's going to eat in America. Meine wird das aus, als Bischlack.
You have to be Chinese?
What? No, you don't have to be Chinese. Boys and mukam.
I'm saying it doesn't...
No. This is what I said before also. The Pasuk Zugen. If most of the people eat it raw, and I cannot stand it when it's raw, it's still not mitter. Because it's guy busarov. It's guy busar individual. It's guy busarov. Busarov what? From where you cook it, the mukam are you cooking, and where you buying, where you eat it. Clear?
But if someone's traveling, lives in China and traveling to America, so now all of a sudden you can't eat it anymore, even though it's totally...
Yeah, because over here is nicht ein Nechel Chai. Exactly. This is exactly what I'm saying, yeah. And it's also tuli, I said again, it's tuli in the way, it's tuli in a lot of things, but it's also tuli in the Zman. In the Zman, today's day. 50 years ago, 100 years ago, yeah, there are stuff which we didn't eat when it's raw. So therefore, it's given bishlakim. Today's day, you do eat it. Falls away the bishlakim. For instance, the poskim say, once upon a time, nobody ate carrots, which is raw. Nobody ate kruv, cabbage. Nobody ate cabbage. Kruv is the bishlakim. According to the poskim. And carrots is bishlakim. Today's day, carrots. Today's day, there's no bishlakim on carrots. Why? Because most of the people eat carrots raw. And the same thing will be raw cabbage. Most of the people will eat it in coleslaw, or you put it into a salad. So things change. It's not like Zayras Akusiv.
Everybody wants to restaurant the real salad that's raw, and you start making everybody eat raw.
Some eat eggs, French is also...
We're gonna get to eggs. The
Especially the onions also.
Onions, a big mishal nachroinam. Onions b'chlal. Onions, exactly. Das ist übrigens eine Sache. Onions haben wir machluk in Postkam. A ganze Schmies. Sie ist ja nechel chai, nicht nechel chai. Sie ist ja du bishlakim, nicht bishlakim. Lamaas, bis man also, we paskin, that there's no bishlakim on onions. Although the guy cooked it. So you have a guy which dinsed, fried onions. So you can bishlakim, because nechel chai. Because it's totally also, again, it's totally in the mukam, from where it was cooked. It's totally in the mukam of where you're eating it. It's totally in most of the people, that means totally in the person, and it's totally on the zman. So things which, for instance, today there is a big shal in the contemporary achroinim. If fish there is bishlakim, because today's day you eat sushi. But I got to know that from reading on this subject. Most of the people today in the United States do not eat sushi raw. I thought yes, but they say no. Most of the people not eat it raw. What?
Sashimi, it's a different soup.
It's
saying sashimi is the one that it's raw, so there are some people eat that, like sushi b'chal, it could be...
Sushi, a lot of people eat it with vegetables, andere Sachen, but even in fish, it's not raw.
It's mixed in with some.
So mixed in with Sachen, it goes through a process to become, as we gelernt yet, so my level is a tanen, and as Senechals do bishlakim of fish, because you cannot say, well, you have to eat also how, a ganze Shala, if you go according to the mean, so you're going to the way how you cooked it. Again, this is a nice topic, bishlakim, and a long Indian. We're going to get to a lot of the Nikidas, but just I'm still know about the Agdumas to make it clueless the Agdumas, what it is, what's going on in this heterodonish.
Is baby corn considered part of corn?
The what?
Baby corn.
No.
People eat it raw.
If most of the people eat it raw, then it's going to be bishlak.
Same things to the same thing.
No. Baby corn and those are nicht dieselbe Sache. Now, again, as I mentioned before also, if it is nechel chai, even if the goy cooked it, they make a different machel. For instance, a goy made compote, or made applesauce. That's a good applesauce. Applesauce is the apple is raw nechel chai. Most people eat the raw apple. So applesauce, which has an OU, mitzad bishlakim is not a problem. Now again, you have to know which plant you made it and how did they cash it. Again, there's different problems with the national those farachsidish, because as I mentioned already more than once, depends also how much. If they make it in big companies, which they make a lot of mean foods, and come even though you cash it, there's an elach yid, but they cash it on a lower standard that we cash it. By us, we have to cash it to 12. Yeah. By them, 160, 170, it's sherochgit. So again, do you want to rely on it? But let's say if we know alles is fine of oil, it's an issue. Als bishul akim, it's not a problem. Because since you can eat it raw, then even though he made compote, he made something different, he made, again, applesauce or other things, as long as you can eat it raw, although he made it better. It's a geschmacke, again, in Shlukan bishul akim. Another thing is interesting. The Mechaber writes, Mechaber Siv Bais, writes, if you mix together, you made a soup, for instance, and you mix together things which is du bishul akim and things which is bishul akim. You have a soup which has vegetables. Some vegetables is du bishul akim because it's nicht nechel chai and it's oile shulchan marucham, and some vegetables is there's not a problem of bishul akim. Zukt of them the Shulchan Aruch, you look on what's the ikir. If the ikir is the food, the majority, the main thing, the ikir is the thing which is not du bishul akim, so the whole soup will be okay. Lekitchila. Nicht nur lekitchila, im make so viel zusammischen. That means I can make a soup, for instance, squash, nobody eats raw, yeah? I would say so, such thing, yeah? Squash, nobody eats raw, I think so.
What type of squash?
Okay, take a pumpkin, okay? Pumpkin you eat. Pumpkin nobody eats raw. So now you make a soup which has pumpkins, and the guy makes it. Pumpkins, and you have carrots and tomatoes, whatever. What? A mix. Zug the Shulchan Aruch, if the roiv are from vegetables, which is nicht du kein problem fin bishul akim, although you have things which is bishul akim, magai bus roiv. In Maila, in makes the gitchilatin, so I'm washing in the gitchila. So I was in the gitchila, was noch schon kann ist. Wir bald das sekili kmandalaise, evet bottle. The what? No, the water is why do we get to water auch? It's du bishul akim. We get to that, but akapunam azuk the mechaber, me kann afel gitchila. The mechaber is the mitter. The Darketshiva sucht, das ist nicht nur, das ist Mitte, or you could mix it even together, lekitchila ochet. But again, that's only if you mix it before you cook it. You're going to cook a soup, you mix it in squash, and you mix it in carrots, and you mix it in pumpkins. You know, if you use pumpkins. In America, you don't use pumpkins, you know, and it's a rule, they use pumpkins, yeah? When I was living in Israel after my chasana. So my neighbor made a soup, and she put in pumpkins. And my wife asked me, you eat pumpkins? And she says, why not? Why not?
Butternuts.
For us in America, pumpkins? A goyish zach. Halloween. So again, let's go back. There's a milk to the badichis of emtza limit. What?
Butternuts became popular.
Butternuts, right? Yeah. Okay, so basically, the kid said is, that's only beforehand. You're going to cook now a soup, you're putting in together all that, you're going to bishlit, it goes after a roiv. But one is, if you cooked pumpkins, and you cooked vegetables, and you poured it together. You made it in the raw our vegetables, which is okay. Of them you can have sie geworden usad. The pumpkins are geworden usad, geworden bishul akim. Now you're going to push it. Avada you cannot, if you don't see the isser, and you got mixed together, then butel barav, which you know, bishul akim, is butel barav. That means if you have something which was cooked, it's the usi bishul akim, but they got mixed together with other foods, barav, you cannot see it anymore, but it's butel. You don't need shishim, it's the bishul akim. If it was bottle, in such a case, avada is butel. But if you see it, it's very butel. So that alle klule from bittel in Hilchas in the Heilig Aleph. As b'mukawik you can see it, very butel. So therefore, if it is cooked already and you mix together, then it's juda heter. In avada einvat is like tchila. We are talking when you push it, mix it together when it was raw, and it cooks together. In such a case, is nishukan problem, and heißt einvat nicht tchila. In such a case, in nishukan problem fin bishul akim. One final lucha is that if a dover nechla layat chag, what is if a food which you could eat raw, and people eat it raw, but layat chag? Means when you don't have what to do, like that mashgiach when he was on the way to Buffalo, you didn't have or you didn't want to spend money on you're buying something which costs money, and he took out from the corn. So all layat chag. There are foods which only have layat chag. Zukt of them mechaber it's osser, v'yesh matirim. The mechaber bringt the mistam zukt it's osser in v'yesh matirim. So again, in such a case, in Paskmanas is Usar, but for Tzarifim we're going to use it. In such a case, when we have other Tzarifim, which we have a couple of other Tzarifim, we will rely on this also, that basically Aladai Chak, it is kosher. For instance, sushi, I would say, in such a case, since Aladai Chak is this Usha, I think that what, as I thought that we can make it sagen. Hotchik, the Mechaber allein bringt zwei Schittes, in man as I thought, nur auf Tzarifim, man es nehmen, nicht auf andere Sachen. Okay, noch zwei, drei pure kiddes. Now I want to go in a couple of ne Sachen was in the Gaia, like Abba Machulam, which we have a shala. What will you say on milk? A goy cooked milk. Is it osir or not? Cholov. Is cholov osir bishul akim or not? Now the Rambam writes in Pari Yidzayin and Milchs Bechulos Asiris, as is nechel k'moishi chai, and it's not a problem. You can eat milk when it's raw. As we pass in the Marsham Ochet. I'm a mishul akim on milk because it's nechel k'moishi chai. But the Menches Yitzchok in Chayli Yitzim Samach Zayin has an issue with it. He says today's day there's no such a thing you should drink milk without it's pasteurized, which pasteurizes cooking. Zuk the Menches Yitzchok, since milk, in order to able to drink it, because it has bacteria and the things, it's not only the law, but people will not drink milk when it is not pasteurized. In such a case, hotra problem, maybe it is not, you cannot eat when a goy made it. He brings down that the Yosef Tzidishinsky in his Shiva Shal Shivis Maritz, Chaylegal of Simon Memvuf, hot schon des Sufuk. And as nooit Maritz is meer nooit al iser, aber es ist stapig. Menches Yitzchak is auch metzadet in zoekt as machmer tuvulov brucha, don't drink milk which are goy cooked. Aber hat dort a papi dort ein CB sicher limits gis. But Lamasa, what? What?
Any mashke could have issue.
Why not?
So,
mashke is auch Bischel. So ist a Bischel. Mashke is auch a problem für Bischlakim. What? Yeah. Again, we're going to get to gewisse Matzuvim. Aber Melech, aber Lamasa Ravosner, there's a koivitz, it's called Mebeis Leivi. It's not in his chivas, but Ravosner, that's his nephew, who gave a koivitz with shalos, which he spoke with Ravosner. And Ravosner writes over there, but pashtas, pasteurizing is nicht considered bishul. And he says, why? Because nothing changed. Serua be'etzam, as we say is. It's a very short word, but I think the kavanah is that why do a person pasteurize it? Because he wants to get better taste. When a person cooks something, the bish, okay, something will make, or even if it doesn't make worse. You're right that it makes worse, but most people who have a problem. But let's say it doesn't make worse. But nobody cooks it in order to become better. You cook it in order to pasteurize it, to take away chadakim, to take away bacteria. So in order that, when we say bishul is usad, is when you make bishul, is you're cooking it in order that you want to make it better. You cook it in order to make the food better. But this milk, you can eat it the same way. If not the bacteria, you have no issue to drink the milk. So as such a case, is nicht du as chulav and therefore chulav bishlakim, and he says therefore, even he had over the Shailam in Chernobyl, in Ukraine, in Chernobyl, when there was the famous explosion of the nuclear reactor over there, and it was dangerous to drink water, and everybody had to drink water, or even in our case, to our times, sometimes when we have a water break or whatever, so there are such cases which is also to drink water, but okay, by instant because most of the time this is okay. But a place which the government says never drink water without cooking it. So maybe ein nechel chai. Since water by Eitzim is nechel chai, nobody cooks it up because he wants to have better water. He cooks it up in order because he wants to take out chadakim, he wants to pasteurize it out of dangerousness. So therefore, it's not a problem, and it's not a problem. Just one final thing, which we mentioned before, Beitza. Beitza, zog die Gemurre klur, shechanur gepasten, Beitza is des Bischel Akim. Beitza is des Bischel Akim. Now, although there are some people in Frat Chazonim, before they go to, Kol Nidra, Yosel Rosenblatt, they gargle with a raw egg or, Zukt aber af Piker, Shechanurach Klur, aber Machaber Sif Yidalet, sie du Bischel Akim afille, when there are some people which will drink it. In the time of the word, what is the reason? Zukt the Tasa from Platz, Sif Kut Yidalet, because goggling or eating raw eggs is al da'et chak. Mamayla achila da'et chak is not considered achila, and therefore it's not considered achila. That means you don't eat it when it's raw, and therefore you have to remember, again as I mentioned before, if you have a cleaning lady or you have a maid at the house, she cannot make scrambled eggs or French toast for your children because there's Bishul Akim, the pot is going to become usur, the food is usur, and we have to take it in consideration. Remember that it's a problem. In where it's very popular when we can make mistakes, where you go out for in a restaurant, in a hotel, which they have it from Thursday night till Sunday morning, and they get Sunday morning, they give you breakfast, and they have the goyim make what kind of scrambled egg do you want? Do you want it with cheese, without cheese, with mushrooms? If we ever buy such a lavish, you're going to see, such a case, you have to make sure that the yeast should open up the flames, because if not, it's bishlakim, it's usitziasim. And now the Racham Mamshach Zameh, the Indian of Oile Shecham Menuchim and other halochas, which is Poshet Gishmak halochas and Gishmak wichtige halochas, which is very, very important.